So in the comments and in live, basically, we've been getting this question a lot. Bakit marunong kayo mag-Tagalog? Or kabalo ka mo mag-Ilonggo? How? Or basically, why are you guys so good in speaking the language here? And this question also comes up, in our everyday life when, we're going outside, meeting people. And we kind of just wanted to actually talk about it, like why exactly, are we fluent in the language and our journey?
Yeah. And I just wanted to, I'm just here to ask some questions to prompt them. So, first question. How did you guys learn Hiligaynon?
How? So, if you guys are new to the channel, yung mom namin mag-Ilonggo na lang ta subong kayo. Mas fluent kami mag-Ilonggo compared sa Tagalog, guys. So, if we're speaking Ilonggo for the majority of the video, pasensya na lang. So, yung mom namin, taga Barotag Viejo. So, when we were in Nigeria, we were only speaking English kasi she wasn't speaking Ilonggo to us. When we moved to the Philippines about 9 years old, 2009, doon na nag-start kasi sa Barotag Viejo, it's like a province, very rural area. So we went to a private school, but it's not like they were speaking English. Nobody was speaking English there. They tried, but wala talaga.
Yeah, so, and technically, sa Barotag Viejo, we're technically the only foreigners in the
That must have been difficult.
Yeah, mind you.
Yeah, it was. So
only black foreigners in the whole town.
So ayun, because of that, I think to answer your question, that's really why or how we learned it. We'll go into the specifics later, but parang yan yung basic reason as to why.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where we live.
Because you lived in an area that everyone spoke Hiligaynon.
Yes.
One question I have is, was there since you said that no one spoke English there, was there any classes or any help there for you to learn the language?
Ang funny lang, because I think we were one of the only foreigners that we had so we went to St. Paul's School, Barotag Viejo, represent SPSBV. And most of the teachers just ended up speaking Tagalog. I mean, they tried to speak English to us, but most of the time they just ended up speaking Tagalog or
Hiligaynon.
Yeah. So we initially had I remember we had a tutor for Tagalog for 4 months, and then we just gave up. So we didn't really have any classes.
Wait, was the tutor bad?
No, she was great.
But
it was
really
just nice.
It wasn't very
effective.
Because again, in where we were in Barotag Viejo, no one speaks Tagalog there. It's Hiligaynon. So
yeah.
So you guys had a tutor for the wrong language.
For the wrong language. I mean,
basically.
Right?
And also technically by that time when we got the tutor, I think we were more or less already fluent sa Hiligaynon because we were speaking to her in Hiligaynon. To the point of the tutor was for us to be better at
Tagalog.
The Filipino classes, because we had Filipino class and we're not, doing the best. But because it's hard to learn a language where no one's speaking it.
Yeah.
So also, if you're 9 years old, learning languages is best when you're 3 or 2 or when you're really young. Learning when you're a little older is a bit harder.
Yeah. So for us, how people always ask how did you learn it? For us, I really cannot give you an answer because parang kahit ako, nagulat lang ako na,
kabalo na ako
parang na-gets ko kung ano ginawakal niya, or parang, okay, I can understand what he's saying, but we didn't necessarily, we read a book. We just had friends who were okay, remember, so kapag maghambal ka na, amuni ang...
Yeah.
So it just became, if you hear it every day and it's more on audio and everything, we just kind of got stuck, and then we learned the language. It took us 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, if I could give a tip, I would say is to practice basically, because if your friends are speaking it, our mom started to speak it, the people in our household started to speak it, it's always good to practice, because at first you're still gonna fail. Because I remember, if I'm looking deep into my core memory, I remember practicing it, and let's say I'll get a word wrong, then I'll get corrected and it's gonna retain na ito pala si Kwan, or amni dapat ihambal ko, okay. So it was, I know that's a general answer, but
yeah. Would you say that you guys would do it before you sleep and stuff? Would you guys be constantly practicing it?
No.
Or when exactly would you guys be practicing it normally?
In school,
walang choice.
again with our experience, it was very
easy to learn. It was we had the environment that was.
You had no choice. I don't know if it's necessarily easy.
The environment was very encouraging because no one spoke English. All our classmates, our mom, our titas, everyone spoke Ilonggo, right?
It's interesting that you used the word encouraging. Do you think everyone was encouraging about you guys learning the language?
No, but basically
I'm not using the right term.
to learn.
It was confusing.
If your goal was to learn Hiligaynon, then we were definitely set up for success.
Okay,
Because
okay,
of
okay,
that,
okay.
you know, environment,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like nobody spoke like any word of English, but people naturally were just always falling back
Yeah.
to speaking
yeah.
Hiligaynon because that's what they
It's
were
their
comfortable
comfort.
with.
It's their comfort
that's their
language. It makes
native
perfect
tongue,
sense.
so
Makes perfect
gets-
sense.
For example, if let's say diba sa Barota Viejo kami ng high school, if I maybe went to high school in even like Iloilo City, it might have been different because when we moved to Iloilo after high school, because that's where we went to college, University of San Agustin, represent. We found out that may mga foreigners dito pala, may mga tao na like English,
Yeah.
is life. So sabi ko, if I went to high school here, I don't think I would have been as fluent as I am now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
also one thing that I noticed.
So
I
you
think-
definitely think that because you guys were in such a rural area,
Yep,
a
100%.
more provincial area, you
yeah.
guys learned it much more.
Yes.
I mean, I guess it can also kind of like just to relate it to you, Chase, because for example, you grew up in Manila, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know how to speak Tagalog.
I can understand Tagalog.
Yeah, you
but
can
my
understand, but you're not like-
speaking is not. I'm not fluent.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I
very
think that
fluent.
also just kind of proves the point as to because of the area we were living in, it was easier. Because yeah,
The thing is, I wouldn't use the word easy to describe that because technically
Yeah.
learning any language is hard. The thing is this: if you're put into an environment where all your only choices are to speak and practice it basically all the time, then you're gonna be better at that skill. This is regards for any skill, not just like languages and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, maybe this is sort of an out of pocket example, but when I was learning French, because I went to a French school here in Parañaque, to get better at French, I was sent to France to a summer school, and no one spoke English, no one spoke anything but French. And over the summer, I went from being like mediocre to being fluent in French, and that just happened across like 3 months because all I was using, I had to talk in French. Everyone was French. Like I had no choice, and so the same situation there, similar. Not exactly because I didn't live there, but it was a conducing environment to learning the language. But let's say like you're trying to learn any skill. Let's say you're trying to get better at let's say podcasting. If you do podcasts all the time, eventually you're gonna get good at it. You're gonna get much better at it because you're gonna learn. You're gonna pick up skills. You're gonna get more comfortable.
And that's what we're trying to do. Char.
Build a habit. You
Pinaglaban
build a
namin.
habit in your head, and that's why you should subscribe, like, and
Baka
turn
naman
on
guys,
post
sa
bell
awa na lang ng
notifications.
Diyos,
Yeah.
subscribe na kayo, oy.
But
But,
anyways,
yeah.
but like one of the common questions I get, to be honest, is like, I mean, you already asked like, I'm not sure if anyone asked, but like, how long did it take? Like, if you would
I
put a
was going to
number
ask
on
that.
it.
Like, how long were you there before you would consider yourself
And
fluent?
to be honest, like, medyo pastory time lang ng very light. But like, when we moved to Bartag Viejo, 2009, around 2012 or 2011, we visited Nigeria.
Yeah.
Again, and when we were in Nigeria for like 3 months, we noticed that even within with ourselves,
Yeah.
we were speaking Hiligaynon.
Yeah.
But then, for like the first 2-3 weeks, but then for the remaining month, we went back to English now because people
yeah,
were
and
speaking
even
English.
our friends who
Yeah.
like grew up in grade school, like mga Nigerian friends namin, they were like, you guys have an accent.
Yeah, like parang
And
iba
that's
na
the
yung
first time we
accent
were like,
nyo.
ay wait lang, what? So parang it was kind of unconsciously, we didn't even know that only
It
2
happens.
years we already
Yeah,
had
yeah.
like, we already started, the accent was different, syempre, because when
It's
you're
definitely
speaking.
a human experience.
Yeah. So it was very like, it was kind of, okay, so, we're really adapting talaga.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that we noticed. And also, I think for me, to answer that question, it took us like 3 years in total to say, I could say like, okay, I'm fluent in the language. And I think it's 3 years, I think it's
At what point were you
Sure.
guys conversational?
Conversational, I would say
year
like
and a half?
yeah, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually kind of a long process. Because I've heard I've talked to a lot of people who've learned languages, and most of the time they say that they're kind of conversational around like 3-6 months.
Yeah.
But if it took
Yeah.
you guys that long, is Hiligaynon would you consider like a difficult language?
I think that's another question that I get. Like, is it hard? Like, is Tagalog or
I mean, maybe in
Hiligaynon
comparison to English,
hard?
which is your
right?
first language, right?
I mean, yeah, but I
Yes
would
and
say
no.
that Hiligaynon, for me personally, mas hapos siya or mas madali at tutunan compared to Tagalog. I don't know why, but like maybe it's because I'm not as fluent in Tagalog or because I didn't grow up around that. But when I compare the two dialects, it's like I don't know. It just feels like Hiligaynon is easier to learn, like in general, because Tagalog has a lot of like.
Ang daming yung Ilonggo
I don't
is
know what
more, you know.
the literature
parang-
word of that is that.
I don't know. I just enjoy speaking Ilonggo more than I enjoy speaking Tagalog. Because right now we're in Manila, so Tagalog is life na. And I always find myself switching from Ilonggo to Tagalog, and it's kind of hard. I just rather sometimes speak Ilonggo and bahala na sila makitindi, to be honest, at this point. Pero I don't know. I like Ilonggo better.
You like it better?
I like it better.
And also, because like, if people are familiar with like how people speak in Iloilo, more
Malambing.
malambing,
Yeah.
pang ano lang,
Yun
ito.
lang.
And I always like, find that interesting. So that's another reason why I like or I prefer speaking Hiligaynon.
So I know you guys talked about it a little bit, but what do you think are the biggest differences between Tagalog and Hiligaynon?
The biggest difference, well, in general, and this is just like not really a unique thing, but like Hiligaynon has more Spanish words compared to Tagalog. I mean, I know Tagalog has some Spanish words, but Hiligaynon has more.
Yeah.
Like, trying to think of an example at the top of my head, pero
Portahan. Portahan is not Tagalog. Portahan is door in Ilonggo, and
Porta. Yeah.
Tagalog
Puerta
is
I think Puerta is Tagalog.
Bintahan is window in Ilonggo, and then Tagalog is
I'm pretty sure it's Bintahan as well. So those are
Basta,
not
may
good
mga
examples,
words,
but like
mga words.
I don't. I
You guys
think
will find
we'll
it.
flash it out somewhere when I figure it out. But
yeah.
like, there are specific words in Hiligaynon which are very more close to Spanish, and in Tagalog it's like
Yeah.
completely different words. So I think that's one
Yeah.
difference. But another difference, again, aside from like I said earlier, like the way people speak it, like more malambig si Hiligaynon, and Tagalog is just more just blah 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 blah. Yeah. But like even in Tagalog, I think like within Manila, people speak it differently.
Yeah.
Depending on where.
More
I don't know.
konyo vibes.
There's the Konyo vibes. There's the straight Tagalog vibes. There's like I know
There's
there's so many things.
There's so many ways that people
Yeah.
can speak Tagalog.
Yeah, so it's a
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
hard
yeah.
to like catch on as to ano
And
ba talaga?
also, one of the reasons why we have a hard time speaking Tagalog here, or learning Tagalog instead, is that most of everyone I know speaks English here. And that's
Yeah.
also to Chase's point, right? Because you grew up here, whatever. So that's why I understand why you're having a hard time being fluent in Tagalog.
I
'Cause
mean-
even me, I've been here for 4 years and I'm still not
Yeah.
fluent.
To speak about it in the same terms we were using earlier, it's not a conducing environment.
Yeah, it's not. Definitely
Especially considering that like everyone I talk to speaks English. I think there was like a comment about like, didn't you talk to any of your drivers and stuff? I didn't have a driver. My mom was my driver, and she spoke to me in English, so there was really no interaction with anybody. Not to diffuse from this situation here, but going back to the topic at hand, how would you say like I'm sure you guys have met some people who speak Illongo here in Manila. Like, would you say
Yeah,
like
no,
the experience is like, do you guys feel like
Yeah.
you're closer to them
Yes.
versus
yeah,
the
for
other?
sure. I
Yes.
mean, I'm not someone, to be honest, who goes out of my way to like talk to people, to be honest. But every time, let's say I'm like just walking by and I hear someone speaking like Ilonggo, I'm
Parang
always
biglang
like
"Oy, dahil ano,"
tempted to
they're
like it just I feel nice. Like it's always like I
Yeah.
miss hearing
Because we
Hiligaynon.
lived in
Yeah.
like Iloilo and Bertag Viejo totally for a total of like 7-8 years,
Yeah.
right? So it always feels like home.
Yeah.
So when you hear someone speaking Ilonggo here, it just takes me back to like, Iloilo. So parang I would. It's always
Nakakatuwa,
a nice,
nakakatuwa.
magrinig kung may mga tao naga Ilonggo. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So would you guys definitely feel more at home in Iloilo, right?
Well,
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
I think
Okay.
the reason why I laugh is because like, there are different levels to it, Char. Because it's Iloilo, like the actual place, the city. It's really like a lovely city, and I really cherish the 7-8 years that I lived there. But there's a reason why we moved to Manila. When we went back last January for the Nagyang, when you say like it feels more like home, I wouldn't really say that it does. Not because like there's anything wrong with Iloilo, but just because one of the reasons why we moved is it felt very small, right? Very suffocating.
Very safe.
Which
can be
safe
good and
and
bad.
suffocating,
Because
right?
for us, safe is good for some people. They
Yeah.
like safe. They like familiar. They like chill.
Yeah.
For us, because just when we 4 years ago, our mindset was like, we need something else.
Yeah, like a new environment.
A new
back.
environment, a new challenge. So that's why we moved out from Iloilo. But when we went back to Iloilo, again, Iloilo is it's improving. It was your first time, and you enjoyed it, right?
Yeah, it was definitely not exactly not entirely at all what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was definitely shocked. I was very impressed
Yeah.
because you guys kept talking about how small it was, but it wasn't actually that small. It was actually kind of big. I was like, oh,
I
they
think
made it.
once
you guys made it
live
seem
there for like a while,
It gets-
it
it
gets
small.
small.
obviously.
But it's
obviously,
nice now. It's
yeah.
nice. I like it's greatly improved from when we were living there.
Yeah.
So and I know it's gonna improve way
And I will
more,
always for
so.
sure like make it a point or an effort to visit because
Every
just
couple
of that,
of years.
familiarity, and it is home in a sense, but
Yeah.
yeah, there is a reason why,
Yeah.
What would you
No.
say moving from Iloilo to Manila? What would you say was the biggest shock factor?
Oh, good
like
question.
language wise or with the
just in general.
culture
Just in
shock?
general, like.
Well, I wouldn't really say there's like a big shock factor. I mean, coming in, I did know it's gonna be obviously way bigger from what I was hearing, like traffic, blah blah blah. So that's already things I was expecting, but something that
Was there traffic in Iloilo?
No. Compared to
No,
Manila,
no, if you compare, like basically none.
Nothing. Okay.
I mean, there was, but if
I have never known a life
Comparing-
without traffic. You know.
yeah, but like one thing I would say I was surprised with was just the amount of foreigners.
Foreigners. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I would say it's the people. The people are different. Like Illongos are very different from people in Manila, and you can tell. Like visit Iloilo, they're very like Filipinos in general are welcoming and warm, but it hits different in a province. They're more like I don't know.
It's
and
more
maybe
like
that's just
a
for me.
community in the province. whereas-
Maybe, but just for me, my opinion of like Ilonggos and then people from Manila, they're just different. But all of them are great and the same, but the people were very different. So that was a culture shock. And Manila is the bigger city compared to the Ilo that's smaller, so that was also a culture shock. And the language, of course, we had to start from scratch and then
Yeah.
cheka and
Yeah, but I mean, those are just some of the few questions that we get asked. If you have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or what else you want us to
Yes,
talk
we
about.
read the comments, guys. we like and we reply actually.
Yeah, as much as we can. So, again, any more things you want us to talk about? Just
I
let
mean,
us know.
I guess I have a couple of questions. Like in Manila, like there tends to be people from all over the Philippines, right? Do you think that has like a bigger effect on why you don't feel it's the same as like a provincial experience?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in Iloilo, you can count how many foreigners you see. But here it's like.
Oh, so you think it's more so on the foreigner aspect
Yeah,
rather than
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
for sure.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
I guess my last question would be like, would you continue if you guys ever decide to leave the Philippines? God forbid, leave the Philippines. But would you guys continue to you guys think you'd continue to speak Hiligaynon? Just even amongst yourselves.
I mean, for sure, because even when me and Becca are like alone, we like the way we speak to each other is like a mixture of Hiligaynon, English, and some Nigerian broken English. But yes, for sure, I honestly think that regardless of where we are, like in the world, that's just
we're
gonna
take
be.
it.
you guys are not
yeah.
ready for the Nigerian.
Iba naman yung topic yan. But yeah, again,
Thank you again, guys, for watching. Again, subscribe, leave a comment, and see you in the next video.
If you guys want to see us do some more, personal deep dives like this with interview styles like this, please make sure to let us know, and we'll continue doing so.